Good morning. We were really worried about where we were going to find breakfast this morning because we're not going to Chadney Cove Market today. But on our way to the train station, we came across this street food vendor that was not only selling masala chai, but samosas. And we were able to get 2 chais as well as 3 samosas for 50 rupee, which works out to be under $1 Canadian for breakfast for both of us. That's pretty exciting. It was hot, it was delicious, so that's a win. We are now headed to the metro and we are going to go to our first site, which I can't quite say, so I'll work on the pronunciation and get back to you. We have made it to Safdarjung's tomb, and I've maybe learned how to pronounce his name. Not entirely sure, but this was built in 1754 of sandstone and marble, and it was built in the typical Mughal Empire style.
The reason for that was because Safdarjung was a prime minister in the Mughal Empire times. And actually, this is one of the first tombs of this kind to be built for somebody who was not emperor or part of the emperor's family.
I think that's pretty cool.
Except when you actually get into the backstory of how it came around. Apparently, he was not the nicest person. He really took advantage of the vices of the Shah at the time and proceeded to strip the powers away and give them all to himself over time. Such was his reputation that his son had to beg the next emperor in order to build this tomb in the first place.
I don't know why it suddenly hit me, but it has. This is going to seem really silly. But like, these are tombs. They're not palaces. And they are so large and ornate, and like, no one lives in these. This would just be out of the question in North America and Europe. We don't revere our dead in the same way. I mean, these places are absolutely stunning and would make for gorgeous homes, actually. I don't know why that's just hit me, but it's pretty amazing and different.
Yeah, I think the thing that struck me the most about this is, one, it's extremely similar to Humayun's tomb. Obviously, Humayun's tomb came first, and obviously it's all meant to be in the same style because that empire did a lot of architecture just like this. But it's kind of interesting because I reckon if you put these side by side and told somebody to really sort of properly spot the difference, then the untrained eye probably wouldn't be able to do it. But I think the most apparent thing as well, though, is obviously with Humayun's tomb that has been put on the UNESCO World Heritage List, and so therefore it has been undergoing reconstruction, repairs, renovations, all of that kind of thing to make sure that it's in the ideal state considering its age. This hasn't, and really this is a glimpse into what the likes of Humayun's tomb would look like if it weren't for UNESCO's money. But all the same though, it's still pretty well maintained. The grounds are amazing, and the pavilions we can see are gorgeous.
They're just not in a state where you can enter them.
No.
And even Safdarjung's tomb itself, we can't go in. There's scaffolding on a few sides. The entrances are blocked. Some of the railings are like balcony are broken. It's in pretty good state considering how old it is, but just you can tell the difference between this and Humayun's tomb.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, there are far less tourists here. It is very peaceful. We might be one of 10 people who are here. So if you want a bit of peace and quiet, come here. The other thing is that it is cheaper. It's half the price. Yeah. Like it was 600 rupees for both of us to get in, and that's $10. So just something to consider.
We're now heading on to Lodi Gardens?
Well, I would say at Lodi, but it could be Lodi.
I think it's Lodi. But anyway, we're going to some gardens and looking forward to it.
And they're free.
Even better.
Walking through Lodi or Lodi Park has been a lovely, peaceful respite from the chaos that is the rest of Delhi. It is an absolutely gorgeous gardens, and it has many tombs and just buildings scattered throughout it.
So apparently before the Mughals, then there were the Lodis that actually ended up ruling through parts of India, Pakistan, and other parts of the subcontinent. And it was them who actually constructed these tombs that then have become part of these gardens. And because these predate the Mughals, then a lot of these structures actually are from about the 15th century AD.
We've just walked the length of Lodi Park, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. It is just chock full of all kinds of plants, which is incredible to see because some of them are definitely not common to us. We've seen monkeys, we've seen swans, we've seen birds of prey, people doing yoga. It seems like a pretty romantic spot where couples come for a walk or a little picnic. And then intermingled amongst that has been all of this Lodi architecture featuring all these tombs they built. It's been nice to see something other than Mughal architecture. It changes it up because obviously the Mughals and the Lodis are very important to history here.
I think really this is going to be kind of among the last things we actually see in Delhi. So with that, what's been your thoughts?
We should be completely transparent and have a bit of a heart-to-heart so that you can prepare yourself if you decide to come to Delhi. I don't even know if what we can say can prepare you, because people did share their experiences with us before we came, and I still think we've been
A little bit shell-shocked.
a little bit shell-shocked. I want to preface this by saying that we have seen some religious temples like Sikh temples and Hindu temples, and we've seen Mughal architecture and now Lodi architecture in the form of tombs and forts that we have never seen before. This is completely new architecture to us and history that we haven't yet explored. And when you're inside of those historic sites, there is a certain amount of calm that you get away from the city. We've also met some lovely people along the way. We met a young guy when we were getting chai one day who was super interested in just practicing his English. We have got stopped for a lot of photos, especially yesterday, a few today. But some of the people, they are happy to ask you where you're from, and we ask them what part of India they're from, and they're really friendly. Like, they come up to you and they're like, oh, could we get a picture? And so there have been some really pleasant experiences. However, you had a particularly unpleasant one.
Like, I knew that there would be, kind of in the same way as a number of other countries we've been to, there would be a lot of people who would be trying to just sell you stuff. That I kind of expected, and that was fine, but I think I can point to a few incidents where I've been trying to say no thank you multiple times. By multiple, I'm not just saying like 2 or 3 times, I'm saying like in double digits times. And despite that, that hasn't, like, they've seen it as more of a game to see like how many times I can say no thank you, rather than the actual thing it is, which is trying to politely tell them to not bother me. And I think there's been one particular incident, which was when we were outside the masjid. We were on our way to a different place, and next thing you know, this guy spots me. I don't think I even made eye contact with the guy, but he then starts to say, like, do you want some chai? I said, no, thank you. And basically he took that to mean, oh, no. He said no. I can turn that into a yes. I'll keep trying with him. And he just wouldn't stop. He walked with me, was constantly in my face, constantly trying to get me to this chai shop, which I told him multiple times I wasn't interested in. And it got to the point where he was even like holding my arm, massaging my forearm, which I never asked for and I never said was okay. I told him repeatedly to stop touching me, and he just kept doing it. And it wasn't until probably about 3 minutes later that he finally stopped, because he realized that he was at the end of the street. That was kind of his jurisdiction to try and stop tourists. And I don't know, it just was, it was pretty shocking. I think this was kind of the thing, like, it kind of just sort of made me feel, like, it just gave me a really bad taste in the mouth, because I never said, go ahead, touch my arm. I never said, I'm interested in chai right now. I never, like, it was always a very clear no thank you, and I don't want this. And yet he just kept doing it anyway. And I would love to say that that was an isolated incident, just that one guy, but there's actually been several people who just followed us down the road, kept talking at us, either in English or in Hindi, to try and get us to do whatever it was that they wanted.
Yeah, like whether it be get into their rickshaw or sell us something. And I understand they're just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
But it's basically engaging with you when you don't consent to it.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, there are actually plenty of people who have offered us a rickshaw ride who we say no thank you, and they accept it and leave us alone.
Exactly.
So it's not like that's constant, but it's regular enough that it starts to get to you.
Yeah.
And then even the poverty. We have poverty in Canada. We have homelessness. Where we live in Toronto, you see it every day. In Vancouver, when we were visiting, it is very evident that there are people who need help, who are living on the street. So it's not shocking to see it, but it's the consequence of poverty here, in the sense that we were in an Uber one day and we were stopped in traffic. And one girl tried to pull the car window down. And then there were a couple instances where we were walking, and also still while we were in that Uber, where the parents spotted that we were foreigners. And I could literally see the parents shove their children towards the car. Like, don't involve your poor children. Come and do it yourself. They were tiny kids. And so they pushed the kids towards us, and they tapped on the window incessantly while we were stopped in traffic. And it was a major traffic jam, so we were probably stopped there for 5 minutes. And we just tried to tell them, no, I'm really sorry. And they still persisted. It was incredible, this willpower. It was sad to see, but again, it's one of those things where you've told them, no, I'm sorry, and they just don't stop.
I think that in itself, as just an interaction, is just utterly exhausting. The issue has also been that, you know, the great thing about having like a hotel room and all that kind of stuff is that that's your space. Like, you come home, you get an opportunity to just wind down, get all of the normal comforts that you need and all of that kind of thing. But in this instance, the hotel's just really not been that good either. We've had issues with black mold on the walls.
So we switched rooms.
And then the toilet wouldn't flush.
In this new room, and it still does not flush.
Exactly. And when you can't even get your basic creature comforts from somewhere that's specifically designed for that purpose, and it just doesn't feel like anywhere's really safe.
Yeah, we haven't even felt comfortable showering because the bathroom is so dirty and there is no air conditioning, which is entirely my fault for not booking a place that has air conditioning but only a fan. But it just means that like our clothes have not even dried out from the humidity overnight.
Our electronics are starting to play up a little bit because there's moisture inside them. So the instant that we get into somewhere air conditioned, we're going to have to dry them out properly.
And I think for me, the air conditioning, that was my fault. I can live without. But the reviews on this hotel are not bad. So for them to have a shower that really doesn't work, a toilet that definitely doesn't work.
Seriously, the shower head is so clogged with limescale, I'm mystified as to whether water comes out of it at all.
It's just not having a haven from the chaos that is going on outside. It makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, that's our honest impression. We're really trying to keep it like absolutely honest with you. Of course, we are talking from a place of extreme privilege. We completely understand that. We are very lucky to even be able to travel because a lot of people that we're encountering don't have that opportunity. But at the same time, for those that do travel, then you do have certain expectations. And like, don't get me wrong, like with other countries, they've done things a little bit differently. We've rolled with that, but with this one, it feels like we've been a bit too backed into a corner. And I think that's really what's been the kicker for us.
As we said, there are very nice people who we've met here. We are seeing amazing history, and the food is fantastic.
It is.
The food is just incredible. But there's just two sides to it. And at the moment, it's like the bad is canceling the good out. And because of the hotel room, which is partially my fault, it's maybe swaying us to be a little bit more negative than we should be.
Yeah, but I mean, the good news is this is only one city of multiple ones that we have planned here. So here's hoping that our experiences as we go through this country get progressively better over time.
But don't get us wrong, we have enjoyed what we've seen.
Definitely. The actual tourist bits that we've been doing have been wonderful. It's just been a bit difficult to reconcile the rest of it. That's all.
And I will say, I think it's a little bit exhausting sometimes when you're negotiating for rickshaws all the time. So when we found the metro, lifesaver, also air conditioned and cheaper, like jump on that.
Cannot recommend the Delhi Metro enough.
Speaking of the Delhi Metro, I think we're gonna go and get on it.
Yep.
And head back.
I think so. So until the next time, take care.
And keep smiling.